This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, great. So first, let me give you my little bit background and introduction. Most of you, maybe some of you joined today, new as a new registration applicants. So my name is Mohammad Ishan Taki, and I am currently working as an FP&A team lead in one of the UAE federal government entity, that is a TRA, Telecom Regulatory Authority. We are the regulator of DU at the Salat and also managing all the digital transformation projects across all the government and federal government entities within the United Arab Emirates, UAE. I have been working in the field of finance and accounting for the last almost 15 years, and I started my career from PwC. Then I moved on to industry, and for the last almost 8 years, I'm working in the MENA region, including UAE and Oman. And I have gone through a financial crisis of 2008 and 9 as well. And at that time, I was working with PwC in their audit and advisory section, and we were serving various clients. And I learned a lot during that period how companies navigate through these turbulent time during this time of crisis. And after that, in 2016 and 17, maybe you are aware of the oil price crisis that hit the Middle East countries, especially oil-based, non-oil-based economies. For example, Oman, especially I was in Oman that time working as the head of finance in one of the construction company in Oman. So that was heavily impacted because our all mega projects were from the federal government, and due to their small percentage of GDP from the non-oil sector, they were heavily impacted due to oil price crisis during that time. So I also managed that on hold, and there were such liquidity problems were there. So that's what I have encapsulated all my experience into this presentation to share with you, and also during this current time of COVID-19 pandemic and its economic and financial implications, what we are facing around the globe. That's what I'm going to discuss, and let's start with our presentation. So first, I would like to give you one story to warm up your resilience. Let's have a look at the story. It might be a little bit long, but we can read it quickly. Okay, so Douglas and Walter, two University of Pennsylvania MBA graduates, were laid off by their Wall Street companies 18 months ago. Both went into a tailspin. They were sad, listless, indecisive, and anxious about the future. For Douglas, the mood was transient. After 2 weeks, he told himself, "It's not you, it's the economy going through a bad patch. I am good at what I do, and there will be a market for my skills." He updated his resume and sent it to a dozen New York firms, all of which unfortunately rejected him. He then tried 6 companies in his Ohio hometown and eventually landed a position. Walter, on the other hand, by contrast, spiraled into a hopelessness. "I got fired because I can't perform under pressure," he thought. "I am not cut out for finance. The economy will take years to recover." Even as the market improved, he didn't look for another job. He ended up moving back with his parents. So Douglas and Vander, actually composite based on the interview, stand at opposite ends of the continuum in reactions to failure. You have to focus on this point, reactions to failure. We will discuss it further. So the Douglases of the world bounce back after a brief period of malaise. Within a year, they have grown because of their experience. The Walters go from sadness to depression to a paralyzing fear of the future. Yet failure is nearly inevitable part of work, and along with dashed romance, it is one of the life's most common traumas. People like Walter are almost certain to find their careers stymied, and companies full of such employees are doomed in hard times. It is people like Douglas who rise to the top, and organizations must recruit and retain in order to succeed. But how can you tell who is Walter and who is Douglas? And can Walters become Douglases? Can resilience be measured and taught? My answer to this question is yes. Resilience can be measured, resilience can be taught. You can strengthen your resilience. And through this webinar, through this session, I want all of you to become the Douglases. I don't want you to become and end up becoming a Walter. So let's start with the very basic definitions. And before moving to the personal resilience, I will just explain you what we are going to cover today. We will be covering the resilience at 3 levels. That includes financial resilience, personal resilience, strategic resilience. First, we will discuss the personal resilience, because if you are not resilient at your personal level, if you are not able to manage or lead or influence your own self, then of course you cannot manage or lead your organization and make your organization or companies or corporates financially and strategically resilient, right? So first you have to start from your own self. So first we will be looking at the personal resilience. So what is emotional resilience? Emotional resilience is obviously all about your personal resilience. Here are some different definitions given by different experts. Let's discuss them. Emotional resilience may be described as a general capacity for flexible and resourceful adaptation to external and internal stressors. You know, we have internal stressors as well as external stressors. Internal stressors means that occurs something stressors like, for example, inducing thoughts of behavior. These thoughts may come from one psychological mindset or expectation. Examples could be putting pressure on yourself to be perfect, or fear of, you can say, public speaking, or maybe fear of the current pandemic situation in more serious cases. So internal stressors may lead to feelings of depression and anxiety, whereas the external stressor, you can say, are events and situations that happens to you. Some example external stressor like major life changes, or maybe you can take the example of COVID-19 pandemic. That's also a example of external stressor. So it's your general capacity for flexible and resourceful adaptation, because in order to build your emotional resilience, you have to focus on your rich inner life, because rich inner life is where we take some of the attention away from the external and we begin to connect with some of the resources that are within ourselves. And a lot of times we don't even know that we have those resources consciously. We sometimes don't think about them because we are so busy looking at the external picture, and our focus is more directed much outward. This is, I think, the time where we are in the self-isolation or quarantine, and we are just disconnected from the outside world in terms of our social gatherings or our physical connections with our colleagues, our family members. So this is the time we should disconnect and reconnect with our own self. And then here we can develop our personal or emotional resilience. So another definition, emotional resilience refers to effective coping adaptation when faced with hardships and adversity. Then another example by Tugate and Fred has been characterized by an ability to experience and bounce back from negative emotion experienced by adaptation to check the changing demands of success. So in short, emotional resilience is your ability to bounce back and emerge as a new or stronger version of yourself. So here are the 4 main dimensions of resilience. That includes the resilience at the physical level, at the mental level, at the emotional level, and spiritual level. These all 4 dimensions of resilience are interconnected with each other. And let's discuss one by one, and just you focus with me on each of these dimensions. So first of all, let's start with the physical dimension. Physical dimension, it's all about your fitness, your nutrition, the food, your diet, and the rest and recovery of your physical body. That's include, for example, doing exercise at your home or your gym. These days, of course, we can't go home. So if you have a treadmill at your home, you can do a walk at your home, or even if you don't have treadmill, you can do certain yoga and certain exercises to keep yourself physically fit. Because during these days, you know, as we are totally disconnected from ourselves, even we are working from homes and the remote working, most of us are working remotely. So it is very important, first of all, to strengthen our resilience is to improve and maintain our physical dimension of the resilience, because it will improve our immune system, it will improve our strength, it will improve our flexibility. And immune system, as you know, different according to research. That immune system is the best combat against the coronavirus, against this virus. So of course, if you take care of your physical health, your diet, your fitness, your nutrition, your rest and recovery, then of course you can strengthen your immune system as well. Then of course it is the best combat against the coronavirus. Okay, then we have mental dimension that includes self-belief, outlook and perspective, thinking traps, sustained focus, casual analysis, controllables. These are all about our mental or intellectual or cognitive capabilities. So there is a connection between the physical and the mental, as you can see this circle. Because if you are not physically fit, for example, if you are physically lazy, then just consider your own example. If you are feeling physically weak, or you are feeling very lazy, or you are intaking lots of sugar, even there is a, according to various medical research, if you consume lots of sugar, it will reduce your cognitive capability. It can harm your intellectual capability, according to various medical research. So these all are interconnected with each other. You have to take care of your physical health. That will also have an impact on your mental capability, on your mental dimension as well. So the third one is the emotional. The emotional is the most important, and it's just like an elephant, and it's a part of the right brain. Maybe you are aware of the concept of right brain and left brain. The right brain is your emotional brain, whereas left brain is your mental brain. Emotional brain, it can either harm you or it can do wonders for you, because it has such a high level or such a significant level of impact on your mental level, on your physical level as well. Because for example, if you are not emotionally intelligent, if you are not able to control your emotional mind, emotional brain, and most of the decisions you are taking emotionally, then of course you cannot get positive results or positive outcome. Because at the time, sometimes, for example, if you can take example of, if you most of you are from the UAE or in the Middle East region, people here spend up to 1 million dirham to buy just a number plate for their vehicles. Maybe you're aware of those number plates with the digits of 1 or 2 or some fancy number plates. 1 million dirham to spend just for a piece of plate, for just a piece of steel. Is it an emotional decision or a logical decision? Of course, this is an emotional decision. So sometimes we take emotional decision, then we try to give a rationale or logic for it, and we thought that we are taking a logical decision, but no, it's an emotional decision. We buy such expensive items without much use because we want to maintain our status, we want to maintain our standard in the society. So these are all our emotional decisions. So you have to take very good care of it when taking a decision, whether you are taking emotional decision or a logical or mental decision. Because emotional decision, it can overpower you, it can overpower your mental and physical capacity. For example, if you are emotionally down, or if you are not taking emotional responsibility for yourself, if you are getting affected by other people beliefs about you, other people opinions about you, then of course you will be emotionally drained, right? Then in that case, there will be significant consequences and adversities at your physical level as well as your mental level. You will not feel, for example, if you are emotionally down, you will not feel to do any exercise, right? But at the same time, it's in my personal experience, maybe it worked different for different people. When I feel emotionally down or stressed or depressed, I suddenly go and immediately I go to my treadmill, and for 15 minutes when I do my treadmill, I walk on my treadmill, it suddenly changed my mood, my behavior. Because according to various medical research, there is a chemical reaction in your mind when you do the physical exercise. When your body is in momentum and your body is moving, there is a chemical reaction in your brain that suddenly changes your moods. So sometimes we are not able to control our emotions, then you have to do some physical exercise. That's why these all dimensions are very highly interconnected. And emotional intelligence, we will talk about more in the next slide. Okay, so the fourth dimension is also very important and plays a very vital role. That's the spiritual dimension. That's all about your beliefs, your values. What are your beliefs? What are your values? What is your faith? It obviously are vary from different religions. Your empathy. So spiritually, for example, if you want to do an exercise, or for example, you have a belief that I want to maintain my health. I want to look good. I want to be healthy. I want to remain young. So if you have a belief on that, if it's a part of your value, then of course automatically you will be inclined towards doing the physical exercises, right? So spiritual level will also affect your physical exercise. Then if something bad happens to you, then you will get emotionally drained, right? But if you have a belief, if you have a strong belief system, if you focus on your own identity, who I am and what is happening to you is a part of life, then if you have that belief, then of course you will not get even emotionally drained, right? If you have a strong faith. So in this way, these are all interconnected. So these were the 4 dimensions of resilience, and you have to work on each of them to strengthen your power of resilience. Now let's cover quickly our habits of highly resilient people. Highly resilient people know that suffering is a part of life and it's temporary. That's all realistic optimism. So they are optimistic. Optimism is not about the positivity. Obviously, we have more than 2 million people infected through coronavirus around the world. More than 150,000 people have been killed and died during this pandemic time. So how we can be positive? It's not about positivity. It's about the future. Optimism, it's all about the future, that yes, this COVID-19 pandemic situation is temporary and we will get over it soon. So resilient people are very good at choosing carefully where they focus their attention. They have the habit of appraising the situation, focusing that they can change. Means they focus on their circle of influence. They don't get affected by the external circumstances or conditions or conditioning. They know where they have to focus their attention, focus their all energies, as we discussed before. Resilient people always ask the question to themselves, is what I am doing is helping me or harming me? So this is a very key and important question. What you are doing, is it harming you or is it helping you during this situation? Then they treat problem as a challenge and always they look for opportunity to improve themselves and emerge, because if you are resilient, that means you can bounce back during the tough times and you emerge as a new version of yourself, as a more stronger person. That's all about the resilience. So the major important component to exercise and to become personally resilient is all emotional intelligence. Of course, as you might know, it's a very famous concept these days, and it's one of the most important soft skills in demand even in the career and the jobs around the globe. So emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions. Recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. It's all about understanding your own emotions and understanding and managing the emotions of others. That could be your colleagues, your family members, or your friends. So every one of us should own some emotional responsibility for ourselves. We should not always blame others that, oh, I am getting overwhelmed, I am getting stressed, I am get irritated because of this situation or because of this person. No, you have to control your emotional response and you have to own some emotional responsibility for your own self. I will discuss this in the next slide more in the form of a framework. So nobody can hurt you without your consent. It's our inability to control our feelings that affects our attitude and results in sudden change of our emotions and behavior. So it's all about our thinking. EQ counts for twice as much as IQ and technical skills combined, determining who will be successful. As we know, the living legend of emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman, you can see his, you might have read his books as well. According to his research, he counts EQ as twice as much as important as IQ. Emotional brain, right brain, as I mentioned, it's like an elephant. If not controlled, it can harm you, but if you can control it, it can do wonders for you. Then focus on managing the emotional bank account. Being a finance professionals, we mostly focus on managing we are very good at managing the financial bank accounts in our companies, with our families, but we have to also maintain our emotional bank account. Emotional bank account means you have to do constant deposits into the emotional bank account, means building good relationships with your family, with your spouse, with your parents, with your child, with your working colleagues. That means you have to do constant deposits, not only into the financial bank account. Finance and financial bank account will not bring you any, eventually, it will not bring you any happiness. It's all about the emotional bank account. So you have to make constant deposits into the emotional bank account, and you have to reduce the withdrawals from this bank account to harm your relationships. Then always strive to achieve, always strive to emotionally connect with people around you, especially during this time of pandemic and COVID-19 situation. You have to connect emotionally with your employees, especially, of course, they are getting hurt. In some companies, they are not able to pay their salaries. Some companies are cutting their salaries or delaying their salaries. So of course, they are emotionally distressed. There's emotional drain on them. So you have to control them. You have to emotionally connect with them, understand them. Because of course, if you do it now, they will keep it remember for a long period of time, and you will get a return from them very soon. So the emotional intelligence is all about your self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills are, as I explained, it's all about maintaining your emotional bank account and connecting emotionally with the people around you. So this is the one framework I have established based on research from different books. I created my own self through different research. As you can see, we have thoughts and thinking, right? Everyone has thoughts and thinking. So our thoughts and thinking actually leads to our feelings. Then our feelings leads to the emotions. And then those emotions results in our behavior. Then that leads to certain action that affects our performance and ultimately results in the outcome. So we can take the example. For example, you are dealing with some employee or some of your colleague, your subordinate or your boss, and he is very irritating, or he is very dictatorial style of leadership, and he is very aggressive towards you. So you thought, oh, I'm getting overwhelmed. This person is not treating me well. This person has just insulted me in front of every other person. Like this happens many times with you. Your senior, your supervisor may insult you, or may other colleague misbehave you, then suddenly you get very angry, right? Why? Because it's all about your thinking. If you can control your thinking in a positive way during that time, that will control your emotions and your feelings, and of course that will affect your behavior as well. So if you get overwhelmed, if you get distressed with the feelings, then of course, because it will be harmful for your own self. If you are getting irritated by another person, that means you are giving that person to control your thoughts and thinking, right? To control your behavior, to control your feelings. So why you should give authority to other person to control your thinking, to control your thoughts? It's you. You have to take the emotional responsibility for your own self. You should control your thoughts and thinking, and don't let them convert into such feelings and emotions that affects your behaviors and actions. And of course, if at work you are getting irritated, or you're getting overwhelmed, distressed, or you're taking lots of stress, then ultimately what happens? It will affect your performance, right? It affects your performance means it will affect your outcome at the job. So the same thing you can apply with others as well. If you want to, for example, if you want to act as effective leader or emotionally intelligent leader, then you have to understand the cycle of your followers, of your subordinates. Like, what's their thinking process? What are their feelings? Are they feeling overwhelmed? Are they feeling depressed? Are they feeling overloaded of work due to overloaded, or they're feeling under pressure? So you have to understand this cycle. Then you can manage your team also very effectively, as well as you can apply this in your family organization, your family work setting as well, in your home with your spouse, with your family members as well. So another factor that contributes to make you more personally resilient is being proactive. So what is proactive and reactive people? We can identify here. Reactive people are product of their circumstances, conditions, and conditioning, whereas proactive people are product of their decisions based on their deeply internalized values and principles. So reactive people are those who become a victim of the circumstances, conditions, or conditioning around them. For example, if we take the example of pandemic COVID-19, if you are getting so much distress, a whole day you are taking all the news and you are listening to lots of news which is just spreading, like there is, of course, you have to be in touch with the numbers and what's going on in the global economy. But if you get too much of the news, and then you will start to feel overwhelmed, right? Because lots of media, they are just spreading the panic and chaos around the globe. Many companies, they are not even reporting their numbers properly. Some countries, they are not reporting their number of cases even correctly and accurately. So why should we become a victim of all these circumstances and become so reactive? We should be proactive. We should base our decision on our internalized values and principles. So we have to identify what's our values, what are our principles. You have to strengthen your strong belief system, because your identity is all about the strong belief system. Your strong belief system is based on your identity. So if you have a strong belief system, if you want to build your identity, then you will pursue identity based habits, not outcome based habits. You want to build your identity, right? So proactive people take the ownership, initiative, and responsibility for their work, and they don't blame others. They don't blame the circumstances. They take the full ownership responsibility, as it can be demonstrated by the picture on your left-hand side. Then reactive people react to bad weather, whereas proactive people carry their own weather with them. This is the difference between proactive people and the reactive people. Take here one example of COVID-19 situation. Let's suppose you make a plan with your family that you will be going to a picnic party. In February, you make a plan, we will be going to a picnic party to any popular place with your family members. Then suddenly there's a lockdown, right? The government announces lockdown and you have to be self-quarantine or in self-isolation. Then what reactive people will do? They will become so overwhelmed. Oh, our all plan was crashed. We were planning it for such a long period of time, and due to this lockdown, due to this all social distancing and all this protective and protective measures being taken by the government, our all plans crashed. So they will become so much distressed and stressful because of that situation. Those are the reactive people. Whereas proactive people, what they will do, they will celebrate the picnic within their own home. For example, if they are going for a barbecue party, they will do the barbecue within their own home, within their garage or within their sunroof, within their balcony, anywhere they can do. So they will not allow the circumstances, conditions, or conditioning to affect them. This is the difference between the reactive people and the proactive people. So you should be very proactive in order to be highly resilient. Then between stimulus and response, of course, you have the freedom to choose your response. This I will explain you in the more next slide. This concept is from the book Man's Search for Meaning from Viktor Frankl. So I hope maybe some of you have already read it. So let's first discuss about the embracing change. So resilient people are also very good at embracing the change. So this wise man, Charles Darwin, he told it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but rather the one most adaptable to change. So how adaptable you are to change. It's all about your ability, how much agile you are, how much flexible you are. So change is the only constant in life. Change is an opportunity for you to experience something new and to grow and evolve as a person. For example, during this period of pandemic, we are sitting at our home, so we should try to emerge ourselves as a new person, as a new version of ourselves, as a stronger person after this pandemic. Then this is $1 million equation, that event plus response is equal to the outcome. Event is something which we cannot control. COVID-19 pandemic, we cannot control, right? This is the event. But response, we have the freedom to choose response. Nobody in the world can take this freedom from you. This is the concept from the book Man's Search for Meaning, that nobody can take from you the freedom to choose your response, because if event is -100 and if your response is 0, or if your response is also negative, then of course your outcome will be negative, right? So if your event is -100, your response should be 200%, should be 200 plus, so you can make the positive outcome. So it's not only about the event. We might think that only the event creates the outcome. No, it's event plus your response. So how you are responding, it's create the outcome. So you have to choose your response with courage, with creativity, with curiosity, with optimism, and of course with confidence. As according to Napoleon Hill, that every negative event contains the seed of an equal or greater benefits. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, Napoleon Hill, because everything happens twice. Once in your mind, then in the real world. Once in your mind, then in the real world. So always you have to first make up your mind. You have to choose your own response. Then, of course, you can change the outcome. So focus on the circle of influence, what you can influence, what you can change, not on the circle of influence. Don't enlarge or magnify your circle of concern. That will obviously harm you. That will not bring any positive outcome for you. So that's all about the emotional resilience or the personal resilience. Then I will move on because we have a short period of time. We have to cover financial as well as strategic resilience as well. So I will just quickly check the chat box if any issue or anything is there or any questions. You can post any questions in the chat box because today I am myself the moderator, organizer, as well as the speaker. So I might face some difficulties. Okay, so your sound is, there is some echo in my sound, you can say. Okay, can you hear me now properly? Please, can anyone confirm in the chat box quickly? Okay, that's great. Maybe somewhere due to internet connection as well, it happens. So no worries. I will try to reduce from my side. Okay, so now let's talk about the organizational resilience. So first I talk about the emotional and personal resilience because of course, if you are not emotionally and personally resilient, if your employees, if your team in your organization, if they are not personally resilient, then how they can make, of course, your organizational resilient, or how they can improve your organizational at financial level and strategic level. So you have to strengthen your ability to make yourself more resilient, and then of course you can make your organization financially resilient as well as strategically resilient. And how? I'm going to give you some very practical tools, techniques, and frameworks which you can immediately apply at your workplace. As you can see on the screen, this is the first one. So this is one framework to make at the organizational level, organizational resilience. Then we will talk about financial and strategic resilience, and we will talk in the specific context of COVID-19, and I will share with you some research at the global level to make organizations scenario planning and to make it financially and strategically resilient. Okay, so this is a framework. This is a 4-step framework, very simple, very easy. You have to understand the exposures, then you have to develop principles, then you have to identify actions, then you have to prepare for change. Okay, so let's discuss all of them one by one. Just please keep your webcams off so that people will not get confused or screen will not get congested. Okay, so let's discuss each of them one by one. Organizational resilience in this, first of all, you have to understand the exposure. So what you have to do in understanding the exposure, you have to identify the form of economic downturn, what economic downturn you are facing. For example, during 2008 and 9 financial crisis, it was quite different in nature. The banking system would collapse and entire financial institution around the globe were collapsed, and that's what we got the financial and economic crisis around the globe due to the burst of mortgage bubble, or what we say, it started from USA. So that was obviously different nature. But now what we have is the economic and financial implications are because of the health crisis, right, due to COVID-19 situation. And this form of economic downturn has a dual shock on the economy. It has the economic, it has the demand shock as well as it has the supply shock. We will discuss it in our next slide further. So first you have to form which form of economic downturn your organization can face. Then second is the impact on your operating model, like what operating model you are doing. For example, what are your value chain activities, how they are going to be affected. For example, your supply chain, your inbound logistics due to the lockdowns or due to self-isolation or restriction on the movement. So how this pandemic is going to affect your operating model, right? This is the second. And third is the impact on the organization's position. So first of all, you have to understand what's the position of your organization in the market, which position you are in. Either you are at the initial stage, either you are at the growth stage, maturity stage, or you are at the declining stage. So obviously that makes a huge difference in your response to the financial shocks or the financial or economic crisis. So first you have to assess the impact on your organization's position, where you are right now in the market. And third one is the financial exposures or shocks. Of course, you have to identify how your revenue will respond under different circumstances. That we will discuss in our upcoming slides as well. Then the second step is to develop the principles. Most of the organizations, they do one mistake, that they don't develop any principles, and after understanding the exposure, they directly go to identifying the actions. That's a very big mistake if you are doing, or if any organization doing. First, before identifying the action, you have to develop the principles, right? You have to protect your core priorities and keep your mission central. For example, if you are, whatever is your mission is and associated mission activities, operating activities, you have to prioritize them. You have to balance the priorities. You have to do some trade-offs, right? You have to make certain choices, and you have to make some governance model. So in order to in order to navigate through these challenges, so you have to first develop the principles. Then you have to make some strategic cuts. Strategic cuts means you have to cut the fat, not muscles. For example, you have to you have to make 3 buckets. For example, you have to decide where you need to invest, where you need to divest, or where you need to maintain, or where you need to decline, right? So these are all about the strategic cuts. You should not immediately go to the cost cutting. You should make it strategic cuts. And currently in our organization, I would like to share as an example, we have implemented activity-based management. It's not just like ABC costing, it's activity-based management at a very significant, at very advanced level. So now we have the activity. Now I am realizing its importance during this point of crisis, that we have now the activities of each and every projects, each and every activity operations. For example, our activities are broken down into 3 different categories. For example, activities relating to our customer service, activities relating to our operations, and activities relating to projects or initiatives. So when we have to do the strategic cuts, when we have to reduce the cost, we know the cost of each and every activity. We know which activities are related to the customer service, which related to operations, and which are related to some long-term projects. So maybe those long-term projects we can defer, or we can cut those activities, and in this way we can reduce the cost, right? So of course, not every organization is using activity-based management, but even if you are not doing, I suggest you to just divide your activities into 3 or 4 major areas, like activities relating to your operations, relating to your customer service, relating to your projects, and then identify their cost, and then do the cost cutting based on your decision to invest, to divest, or to just maintain. Then of course you have to think globally, act locally. Means there should be decentralized decision making for each department, each business functions. If you are geographically dispersed organization, there should be decentralization, but you have to make sure that there is a strategic alignment among each business functions or each business unit, because that's very important to make sure that the entire organization is moving towards its central mission and vision statement, right? So that's the part also in the developing the principles. So you have to make sure that you have to think globally but act locally. You have to maintain strong collaboration. Then you have to look for opportunities to strengthen the enterprise. For example, as I mentioned during the strategic cuts, you have to see what projects and which initiatives can strengthen you during this time of pandemic. I will discuss further and during the strategic resilience part. So you have to decide here, and this is all about developing the principles. So once you have understand the exposures, once you have developed the principles, then you have to come to take the actions, right? Actions, number 1 is the recession readiness, advanced planning possibility that I will discuss in the next upcoming slide. During scenario planning, I will give you a full model on it, how you can do it. Then of course, revenue, expenses, assets, liabilities. You have to model your P&L, your income statement, your cash flow, your all financials under each scenario. That also I will discuss with you. Then you have to improve the organizational efficiency. This is also a very important part. Now you have understand the exposure. Now you have the principles. You know what are your priorities. Now you know what is your mission. You have did the strategic cuts. You have decided to invest, divest. Then you have to also make sure that you have to maintain and improve even the organizational efficiencies. For example, most of the organization, they are doing a remote working program, working from home program, right? So I will give you example of my organization. What we are doing, we are treating this working from home program as a pilot program, as a pilot project, and our quality assurance team, they are just working on it to see the outcome from this project. They are not just treating it as a crisis response that we have to conduct our work is going on because we have a very advanced Oracle and ERP system. So everything we just last year we digitally transform our accounting and finance functions. So we are working very smoothly, but our quality and assurance team and our higher management, they want to make it as a pilot phase because they are telling if we can measure and we can define some metrics to measure the performance of employees during this time of pandemic, if they're working from home, their productivity, their efficiency. So why not to implement this project on a long-term basis? So they are measuring it. So you can, for example, if most of your workforce, they can work from home, of course you can reduce the cost of your real estate. Why you should spend such huge amount of cost on renting your real estate, giving the rent, then doing the maintenance of your building, then paying your utility bills? If you can do it, then of course you should implement. But for that one, you have to take it as a project. You have to define certain KPIs, certain metrics to measure the performance of employees during this working from home program and the outcome. Then of course you can think of implementing this project on a long-term basis. Okay, and the last one is the prepare for change. Yeah, the last one in the identify action is innovation and new opportunities. Of course, you have to be very innovative. For example, you have to invest on digital technologies, on digital platforms, and you have to identify new opportunities during this. I will explain you further in the upcoming slide during the strategic resilience how you can identify and redesign and reposition and right size your organization. And obviously for that you need to be very innovative. You have to, for example, invest in digital platform. You have to build digital value proposition for your customers. I will explain you in the upcoming slides. So then lastly, and the most important and the most critical part is the prepare for change. You have now understand the exposures. Now you have developed the principles. Then you have to identify the actions, right? Then lastly, you have to prepare for change. And for that, you need a very strong and effective leadership, of course, to implement the change. Then, of course, there is a culture and identity changes as well, pre and post pandemic. What are your cultural values? And as you have already identified your principle, you have your priorities, you have your mission central. So, of course, it will be quite easy for you to change the culture and the identity. But obviously, it needs your strong leadership. Then, of course, the collaboration between different departments is also required to implement the change. Then the reallocation of resources to maximize excellence. Then you have to, of course, reallocate your resources. For example, as I identified in the develop principle, that you have to identify 3 buckets. For example, where you need to invest, where you need to divest, where you need to maintain. So accordingly, you can reallocate your resources. Okay, so this is one framework. This is the resilience framework. Of course, these are on the soft skill side. If you want to make your organization make your organizational resilient at strategic and financial level, then you have to follow very high level of course, the strategy, very effective strategy, and the leadership. You need the strong leadership. That's the one part. Then the culture and behavior, as I already discussed with you. Then preparedness and managing risk. So these are the 3 main dimensions of the resilience framework. Leadership, of course, a shared vision. You have to understand the context. Then in the culture and behavior, you have to have a healthy culture, shares information, continually improve. Then you have to focus on managing in your risk management system. So this is the framework that you can use to make your organization more resilient. Okay, so the financial resilience part, of course, when we receive the financial shocks, what it affects our performance, our operational performance, our financial performance, and obviously it affects our budgetary positions and make our organization more volatile. Then in the financial resilience part, to improve your financial resilience, you have to be more robust. You have to improve your anticipatory capacity. For example, you have to do different scenario planning, you have to do different modeling of your cash flow, of your financials under different circumstances. That will increase your anticipatory capacity so that you will be in a position to maintain your organization's financial position during the time of crisis or unexpected crisis or economic or financial implication, for example, due to COVID-19. So of course, it's your anticipatory capacity. Then your awareness of the market. Being a finance professional, you should aware of the economic macro and macro level, what's going on in the economies and how it's going to impact your industry or in your market. Then it's all about the flexibility, how flexible and agile your organization is. Then the recovery ability, like how fast you can recover. It's all depend upon your financial health, whether you have a healthy balance sheet, whether the loans, or if you have a debts or loans, you have to make sure you have a good return on it. And of course, under different circumstances, you have to do the scenario planning and you have to assess your own ability to recover in advance. Don't wait. Already we are going through, or we are entering into the recession, or in fact we have already entered into the recession due to COVID-19. So you have to strengthen your financial resilience through robustness, anticipatory capacity, awareness, flexibility, and recovery ability. And I will discuss you further in the next slide. Then we have responses to financial shocks. There are 4 types of responses. It's now you have to see yourself what type of response you are giving to this situation. Either it's a proactive, adaptive, reactive, or complacent. So here we can see if it's a proactive approach or adaptive approach, we take financial shocks as an opportunities. If we are more reactive and complacent, then we take treating financial shocks as a threats, and we are focusing and relying on the external problem solving, for example, through the banks. So if you are internally strong, if your financial health of your organization is very good in the start, and you do the scenario planning and you do different scenario planning under different situation, and you have the recovery ability, if you have anticipatory capacity, flexibility, recovery, robustness, if you have a strong balance sheet, then of course you can be very adaptive and proactive, and you can invest during those time. We can take example of certain investors like Warren Buffett. What he do? He's very wealthy person, of course, but he's financially resilient. That's why during this time of crisis, he's taking the benefits, right? He's treating this financial shocks as opportunities. So if you are financially strong, then of course you can be strategically strong as well. You can compete your competitors. During the time of pandemic, of course, your competitors will be heavily impacted due to the financial shock. So if their financial strength, if their financial position is not good, you can take this advantage, you can leverage it, and you can take their market positions, right? If you have the financial resources or if you are financially resilient, then in this way you can treat the financial shocks as an opportunity as well. Then these are the different responses. If you want to understand the pattern of response, if you are having a proactive response, then of course you have a very long-term view. Then development of monitoring and planning mechanisms, it's very high. Then internal, externally motivated to adapt. You focus on internal, for example, organic growth. You are not focusing on acquisition, merger, or you are not relying on external financial institutions. Then your level of innovation is very high. If your business model is very innovative, then of course that means you are proactive. If your organization is not very innovative, if your leaders in your organization, if they don't have an innovative mindset, they don't want to bring new ideas in the business to cater the needs, the changing needs and behaviors of the customers, then of course you cannot be very proactive and you cannot become financially resilient in advance. So at the adaptive level, then it's a medium term view. Then it's a limited development of monitoring and planning mechanism. Then internally, externally, obviously it's internal, then medium. Then at the lower level, complacent or reactive, you have a very short term planning, and you have a very limited development of monitoring, planning mechanisms, systems, controls, governance in place, and you depend mostly on the external sources, for example, financial institutions or banks. So this is the difference between the proactive and adaptive approach and the reactive and complacent approach. Okay, so now let's move on to our scenario-based planning for COVID-19 in the specific context of COVID-19 pandemic. Before that, I will just quickly check my chat box if any issues. Okay. So there is some echo is coming. Some people are telling. So I hope now it's clear. Maybe sometimes it happens because of the internet connection. I think you can check from your side, because I think other people are able to see. Okay. So these are different scenario-based planning as issued by ING that I would like to just quickly show you. Then we will go on to different industries and then the impact on the business. Okay, so this is the base case scenario as given by ING. So of course, as we all know that the severity of economic and financial implications, it all because of the coronavirus, right? The COVID-19, and its severity of economic and financial implication depends upon the duration and scale of this virus. So, for example, we can take certain factors to consider. For example, if there is a full lockdowns end by summer, it varies by country. This is the base case. Then we have a global travel remains restrictive. Then home working stays in place where possible. Then social distancing remain in a feature for 6 to 12 months. Winter outbreak seen as more manageable. Widespread testing give better data on possible winter outbreak, because as you know, many countries, they are not just doing enough testing. That's why their numbers are low. So if they start to test at a more larger scale, for example, UAE, they have almost tested more than 500,000 people, almost 700,000 people. That's why the numbers are increasing. Whereas some other countries, they're not doing enough testing, so that's more dangerous, because you know the nature of this virus is so contagious. If you not do enough testing, it will spread very fast and it will have a multiplier and exponential growth. Then we cannot flatten the curve. So then better contact tracing helps manage another outbreak without full lockdown. Then progress made on vaccine. Then obviously it all depends upon the vaccine as well. When the vaccine will be arrived, then we have to keep in touch and keep an eye on its medical and research work that's going on the vaccine for coronavirus. Then these are the different GDPs, how they will behave under this base case. You can see in the Europe zone, in the US zone, then in the UK zone. This is the base case. Now let's move on to the winter lockdown returns. This is another case, or you can say the most likely case. So in this case, lockdowns end by summer but come back even winter, because you know different medical research and different reports some are suggesting that this coronavirus will end by summer due to the heat, but it might come back again. Like we can expect a second wave during the winter season, so we have to plan accordingly. Then global travel, of course, it will remain restrictive or very limited. Then home working will stay. Then some countries unable to test all people displaying fresh symptoms, reducing visibility on winter outbreak. Then we have antibody test. Then we have progress made on vaccine by year end, but not widely available until 2021. Then of course, because all these have a very direct impact on the GDP, because obviously if you have to assess the impact of economic and financial impact on your organization, you have to consider the GDP, how the GDP will behave and expected in different scenario. Then this is the best case, and we wish all of us that we will be getting this situation very soon. The best case, in this case, the full lockdown and by summer varies by country. Global travel returns close to normal. Businesses and world trade returns to normal. Everything means return to normal, but it looks very difficult. But we hope that it could be the case. Then, of course, in this case, you can see the GDP will start to grow during the third quarter and the fourth quarter, and then of course it starts to gradually improve during this time. Then this one, we wish it will not happen. This is the worst case scenario. We hope and we wish it will not happen, but of course you have to take it into consideration. In the worst case scenario, the lockdown remains largely in place until year end. There's a global travel will remain restrictive. Then the home working stays in place, countries unable to test all people displaying COVID-19 symptom. As I mentioned, that the testing, obviously it's a very important part. If the companies are not doing enough testing, of course, initially their numbers will show low, but suddenly when they start to do mass testing, their numbers will grow exponentially, and then they will not be able to flatten their curve. So USA and UAE, they are doing a very rapid and large scale testing. That's why we are looking these results that the numbers are increasing. But I hope because of this situation, they can control it also very fast. Okay, so these are the 4 different scenarios. So this is the base case, this is the winter lockdown returns, this is the best case, and this is the worst case. I will provide you the copy of presentation, then you can have a look at it in much detail. So this is the impact of COVID-19 on different industries, the losers and the winners. As you can see, obviously the tourism, aviation, automotive, construction, real estate, manufacturing, they are going to be a potential losers. And education, of course, they will be moving to online education, so they will be in a better position after some time. Then of course the winners will be ICT, information communication technology, e-commerce, personal and healthcare, food and processing retail, medical supply and services. So you have to see in which industry you are working in. Okay, so the steps are, number one, you have to identify the 4 different scenarios, as I mentioned before. And after that, you have to see which industry you are working in. Then this is one report and research done by the PwC, as I am the alumni of PwC, so I have the access to their contents. So this also I would like to share with you. Just give me a second. Okay, so this is the research done by PwC, where, as I mentioned earlier, this COVID-19 has a dual shock on the economy. It has a demand side shocks as well as the supply side shocks, right? And these are the different industries that they mention. Some industries will be heavily affected, some industries will be moderately affected, and some will be lightly affected. So these under heavily impacted industries on the demand side, on the supply shocks are all, as we all know, it's the air transport, then hospitality and hotel industries. They are heavily and badly affected on the demand side as well as on the supply side. On the supply side, shocks as well due to disruption in the supply chain. Then petrochemical retail. In the retail, of course, it's non-food retail mostly. Food retail is not much affected. Then telecom, logistics, land transport, these are moderately affected. Then those industries which are very lightly affected on the demand side as well as on the supply shock side are the agriculture, utilities, consumer stable, healthcare, of course, education. These are not going to have a very heavy impact. So you have to see, you have to do scenario planning, means you have to assess the 4 different scenarios, and then under each scenario you have to see in which industry you are in, because this is the report by PwC. Of course, you know, it's one of the big 4 firm, and this is based on their research. So you have to see which industry your organization or your company is operating it, and accordingly you can do the scenario planning and the impact of this COVID-19 on your company's business. I will explain in more detail in the upcoming slides. This is again by the PwC. To deal with the impact of COVID-19, organizations are reacting obviously to external and internal challenges. So some are having a short to medium term measure, some are medium to long term, as I mentioned before in the financial resilience, that those organizations who are more proactive, they are taking a very long-term approach, at least medium to long term, and those who are very reactive, they take short to medium term. But of course, you have to take some short-term measures also to cope with the current situation. This includes in the external, it includes unpredictable demand, of course, unforeseen buying behavior as people are doing stockpiling, panic buying. So you can see unpredictable demand behavior as well. Then the material shortages, supply shortages, interruption because of the lockdowns in different countries, and economic uncertainties. Of course, there the effect on the GDP. 20 million people have lost their jobs in the USA, as we all know. Almost, and experts are saying it will more increase to 30% of their entire population. So of course, it's very drastic effect on the economy. Then our financial markets are crashing. Then of course there is some contractual challenges. If you have a contract with your customers, with your suppliers, you have to go through it. You have to check your both parties ability to abide by the existing terms and conditions. You have to renegotiate certain clauses, certain terms in the contract. For example, your contract, your subcontract with your vendors, or your rental agreements. It could be many forms, right? Then in the internal level, it includes production and internal supply disrupted by the flexibility of the workforce. They are not able to attend, then workforce limitations. They have a limited workforce availability, then how you can manage in that case, and financially and regulatory issues, financial troubles, obviously, such as low cash flow or outstanding. It's a major liquidity is one of the major issue. Then operational issues, of course, you can face as well due to reduced resilience in key functions, infrastructure, and services. So this is the also one of the framework given by the PwC for making your supply chain more resilient. How you can make it so the supply chain resilience, according to them, is spans over 3 phases to support a business in anticipating risks and managing ongoing crisis. So it again have a 3 response: reactive, proactive, and cross-functional. I've already explained you before reactive and proactive. So in the reactive side, there is a crisis response. You have to focus around addressing active risks, COVID-19, leveraging a rapid deployment approach which minimize damage. So obviously it's more reactive approach, more dealing with the crisis reactive approach. Then in the proactive approach, you focus more on anticipating and managing future risks, for example, supplier bankruptcy. So of course, if you have some key suppliers, you are heavily dependent on the supplier, and the bargaining power of the supplier is very strong, then you have to also assess the future risk associated with the supplier. If the supply will go bankrupt, then what alternative sources you have, right? Then you have to focus on establishing a sustainable unit within your organization to proactively manage financial and operational risks. This is, of course, the very advanced form, that you form a separate unit and you proactively manage your supply chain. This is a long-term plan on 12 to 20 weeks. Okay, so before moving on to this plug and play model for business impact, I will just try to check if any issues in the chat box. I hope everyone can see my screen and hear me properly without ego. Just please make sure in the chat box, because I am just checking it, as I am the moderator and speaker as well today. That's why I am checking it with certain pauses. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is the impact of COVID-19 that is almost very common in all the businesses. So you can just plug and play here. So the approach what you have to take is, as I mentioned in the previous slides, that you have to do the scenario planning. Okay, I will take you there just to show you the process, the approach that we are taking as well. You have to, these are the 4 cases: base case, winter lockdown, the best case, and the worst case. Okay, then you have to model your cash flows according to which industry you are in, which industry you are operating in, the impact on the demand side, on the supply side. Okay, accordingly, then you can model your cash flow, your financials, and you can assess the impact of COVID-19 on under different scenario planning. These are various internal and external factors, and this is on your supply chain. And these are the some common factors. Let's discuss them. Like key employee unable, the first one, if you can see, and you can give it 1 to 5 range, lowest to highest, according to, for example, under different situation and under different scenario, you can give it, you can just plug and play and you can see. I will provide you this one in the with the presentation copy as well. So you can see the key employees are unable to attend office. How much is the risk from 1 to 5? Then workforce, labor staff unable to attend office, of course, because of the lockdown situation. Then delay in your interruption in the supply of irreplaceable material. You know the difference, replaceable and replaceable material. Then you have to take care of it. If obviously you have some disruption in your supply of replaceable material, then of course it's more risky. So you have to see where you are under different scenario, under different, according to your industry and according to different scenariо planning, where and how it's going to move or how it's going to behave under different scenarios. Then the stoppage of work due to work site restrictions, because as we know, there's a curfew and there's a lockdowns in most of the countries. So you have to look into it as well. For example, if you are a construction company, maybe you are not able to access that company. but many companies are finding the solution for it. For example, I worked in one previous company in Oman, obviously, and it's a very big construction company. Just I was in touch with them, with their management team. They told that they have decided to put their labor on the site, so they are not ask them to come from home every day, because obviously they cannot move it. So this type of arrangements you can do, for example, in order to reduce the impact on your supply chain, you can your key staff who are working in the operational department or in the logistic on the supply chain, you can ask them to remain at their side. You can arrange some temporary accommodation for them, keeping in mind maintaining the social distancing for them, to protect against the virus, and so that they no need to move every day. It will also help to reduce your transportation cost and avoid any disruptions in your operation. It depends upon like your geographical location and how far your factories, or it all vary from company to company, but these are some very common factors. Then there is a decrease in, of course, customer demand. That also, as you can see in this one, it all demand and side shocks. You can see which industry you are in. Then of course it is affecting your consumer demand as well. For example, fashion retail, furniture, luxuries, these industries are heavily impacted. Consumer demand is heavily impacted. Then but of course you can make some strategy. You can make more strategically resilient. I will explain you how. Then these are some stress testing. I will quickly go through it because of the time limitations. I will provide you the copy of this presentation. You can just see which factors, for example, stress testing financial, of course, to test the liquidity under different 4 scenarios, which I explained you. Under each of those scenarios, you can do your stress financial testing and liquidity testing, and you can create the contingency plan, for example, to define the scenarios, identify variables that can impact revenue, model your cash flow. Then, of course, you maintain your supply chain, protect customers, and protect the employees. Then these are some tips for, of course, the cash flow planning. The cash flow forecasting is the most important part to manage your liquidity. That includes effective cash forecasting. These are some of the ways, some of the tips. For example, clear objectives. You should have good methodology, information availability, the culture. You have to change in the culture to focus on cash via management incentives. Then you should have harmonized forecast. You have to collaborate with all the non-finance business functions, make good forecasting for the future. You cannot just make your forecasting by sitting in your finance department. You have to meet with all the non-finance business function, including sales, marketing. You have to collaborate with them, and your forecast should be very harmonized in the medium term, long term, as well as your approach, your assumptions should also be in a consensus among the entire management team, among different departments. Otherwise, if you will just sit in your finance department and if you do the cash flow forecasting, of course, it will not be very effective, right? Then the accurate information availability, the systems and people, process, technology. It's all about the technology. So these are some of the techniques for effective cash flow planning. Now I will like to quickly move on to the strategic resilience, and I will try to cover it. So the strategic resilience is the capacity to turn threats into opportunities and the ability to take advantage of opportunities in a timely, non-crisis-like manner. That kind of resilience is only possible through continuously anticipating and adapting to market trends that can severely impair the earning power of the core business and enacting needed change before the need for change becomes seriously evident. So strategic resilience is basically your capacity to deal with the threats, with the challenges, and to bounce back as a stronger version, to become more strategically strong after the crisis, right? And these are some tools and techniques which I would like to share with you, to how you can, being a finance professional, we are not much involved on the strategic side. So if you want to support your organization, your management, your team, as a strategic finance professional, you should use these tools and techniques, which I'm going to tell you. These are some tools. Obviously, you are much familiar with business model canvas, SWOT, PESTEL, Porter 5 forces. These are basically to understand the business and its internal and external factors for the strategy formulation, because to make your organization strategically resilient, the most important and the starting point is to understand your business model, right? I will quickly go through you to the business model canvas, then the remaining one, I think you already know it and we don't have much time also to discuss. So what I will mainly focus here is on these 3 areas: strategic resilience rules and techniques. Those are the three rules, three R's: right sizing, repositioning and redesigning, value discipline model, and the McKinsey's three horizon of growth. So these are the area which I'm going to talk about now, because the first tools, five tools, you are already aware about it. Of course, you know Porter's value chain, you know five forces, you know Pestel, SWOT analysis. These, I just want to give you the framework which you have to adopt to make your organization strategically resilient. You have to first understand the business and its internal and external factors for the strategy formulation. Then after that, you will come to the right sizing, repositioning, and redesigning. I will explain you what is value discipline model and McKinsey's three horizons of growth. I will explain you. Then these are the business operating model is the part of the strategy execution and review. So if you want, of course, to make a strategy resilient, you have to implement that strategy, you have to execute that strategy. For that, you need the business operating model. I will quickly go through it as well in the upcoming slide. Then the balance scorecard and the strategy mapping as well. I have also worked on various projects on the strategy formulation, and I have that content I will share with you later to give you the full flavor, full understanding of these tools and techniques. So this is the approach which I suggest you to take. Understand the internal factors, make strategic resilience tools and techniques to make your organization strategically resilient. Then you have to measure it using the balance scorecard, operating model, and the strategy mapping. So strategies. So let's quickly move on to the three R's framework. It is given by the Cascade. Right size, reposition, and redesign. So right size means, first and foremost, obviously you have to focus on the survival, because during the time of crisis you have to focus first of all on the survival. If you will not survive, how you can reposition and redesign, right? So repositioning is your product today, just change it whether you like it or not. So you have to reposition your products in the market. Then you have to redesign. You have to embrace that change today and tomorrow. Obviously you have to redesign your marketing funnels, your marketing tool, that I will explain you in the coming slides. So to do the right sizing of the business, you have to minimize first the investment in non-essential systems. For example, you have to reduce non-essential software subscription cost or defer other non-essential capex. For example, if you are going to have some capex, capital expenditure, you have to either reduce it, don't cut it, just you can defer it, because you see this situation is temporary, and don't just completely eliminate or remove your projects from the pipeline, which leads to your growth. Just you can defer some non-essential. For example, if you have any software subscription, reduce it. Change annual subscription to monthly if it is renewing soon. If you want, obviously, if it's annual subscription, that will be heavy cash flow. So make it monthly. So of course, this part mostly right sizing the business, mostly relating to the financials. So we are already very good at it. Then you can reduce the office cost. For example, staff kitchen to minimum level. And as I already explained you before in the previous slide, if your home working or remote working is working good, then you can reduce your office rent, office utility, and this way you can reduce the cost. So you can make some KPI. This is just an example. For example, you have to achieve the cost of $10,000. Then we have significant improvement in account receivable. This is also relating to financial. You have to create accelerated AR process to recover the debt, create some incentive program for early payments, reinforce the value proposition of products to all customers. Because if your customers, they understand the value proposition, and if you enforce them, of course, they will be more interested to continue buying from you. Then these are the KPI: reduce outstanding debt to, let's say, 100,000. Okay, then customer facing workforce that is commensurate in current demand. So you have to review, make adjustments in reallocations in your sales headcount. You have to review and make adjustments, reallocations in support headcount. What I say is, I will never suggest to do the layoffs or to fire your employees. Rather, you can do the adjustments and reallocation. For example, I see some businesses, I was just looking at some business examples from Australia. What they did, that was a company involved in, they have the pubs and bars. So what they did, they reallocate their waiters and waitresses for the delivery, for the food delivery, because customers of course are not coming, restaurants are closed. So rather than firing them, they are using them to deliver the goods because online orders have been increased. So they are just reallocating their sales department and their support function. They are not firing them. So that's why the KPI which I will suggest to you is to improve the ROI on human capital by say 10 to 15%. I will never suggest you to reduce. Of course, as a last resort, you have to reduce your cost, your payroll cost. For example, you in that way even you can cut the cost of the employees, or even you can defer the payments if you have only cash flow issues. If you don't have much profitability issues, only you have cash flow issues temporary, then you can defer their payments up to 25%, like many big companies or small, even medium-sized companies are doing.
Number
So focus
two.
on improving the ROI on human capital by say 10 to 15%. So try to make adjustments, reallocations in the headcounts rather than laying them off. Then you have to reposition your product. How you can reposition your product? A marketing strategy that takes into account COVID-19. For example, you have to determine the current perception of your product and service. What's the perception of your product and service in the market? How the customer sees your product and services? Are they see the products as a problem solving during this current situation? And which elements you can reposition as necessity? I will give you example here. For example, you are in the furniture business, okay? Obviously furniture is somehow comes under the luxury. So why obviously no one will buy the luxury during this time of pandemic and economic uncertainty and financial losses. You can redesign your product, you can reposition your product as a necessity. For example, you can sell of home office equipment, home office furniture, because most of the people they are you working from home, and even it might continue for a long period of time. So obviously they will be planning to setting up their home offices. So why don't you reposition your product as a necessity and offer them as a home office equipment or online communication equipment, so obviously which will be in much higher demand, right? So this is just a one example. Another example, for example, if you are in a food business, you can offer more organic products because that will help to strengthen the immunity of the customers, right? So you can reposition your product as an organic food items, of course, that will help you to increase your sales. These are the just two examples. Then you can think about your own product, which industry you are working in. Then you have to think about repositioning your product. Now here you have, as a finance professional, you have to support, of course, your business development manager, your CEO, your CFO, or your portfolio managers. Just you have to support you. These are the tools I'm giving you so that you can just support your organization and making them more strategically resilient. So you can implement then revise marketing in all key channels, and of course you have to collaborate with your sales and marketing function, and you can implement some revised marketing in all key channels. For example, you can move on to the online channels, as most people they're ordering online and doing online shopping. So in this way you have to maintain, for example, the KPI, maintain the website foot traffic by 100%. Then the current customers' main interest and use of your product, send customers communication describing how your products helps in current situation, offer some extensions and bonus features. I think you might have seen from your banks, from your telecommunication companies, they are constantly sending you messages about their, just all about their maintaining the relationship with their customers and the use of how you can use their products during this time of pandemic. For example, banks, they are more emphasizing on using their application, right? Mobile application. So it was quite useful. You don't need to go to bank. You can just transfer, do your transactions online. So in this way, they are communicating with their customers, and even different companies, they are communicating with their customer. Then you have to offer targeted support on how to use your product in most effective way. Same like I gave you example of mobile applications, and certain telecommunication companies, they are also offering targeted support how you can use your product in most effective way. Then here you have to maintain, for example, the customer usage level at 60%, 65%, of course, because if you have the higher customer usage level, then of course you can maintain your sales, your revenue, and ultimately it will affect you, obviously, your liquidity. Because most of us, being a finance professional, we just focus on the financial techniques, the analysis. Of course, those are important. I'm not saying that those are not important. Those are important, but those are the lagging indicator. That is something which has already happened. If you're calculating the ratios, if you're using financial management techniques sitting in your finance department, that means you are just focusing on the lagging indicator, but you have to focus on the leading indicators. What is leading to that? How you can lead that business, how you can bring the results, how you can drive the value in your business through, for example, repositioning your product, right sizing. And the third one is the redesign your marketing and sales funnel. Of course, for this activities, you have to collaborate very closely with your sales and marketing function. Sit with your sales and marketing function and discuss with them how you can use digital marketing, what is the investment required, because of course, if whichever business you are, you have to now invest in the digital marketing, right? So you have to sit with your marketing and sales function. You have to calculate the ROI from them. You have to understand what return you will get. You have to help them the best practices in the digital marketing for your industry. Hire a digital marketing expert if you can afford it. Then at least you have to make a KPI to increase your digital marketing leads by 50%. So in this way, you can go and sit with your sales marketing function and discuss with them how to improve your digital strategy and how to make your digital business model or digital value proposition to the customers during this time. Then digital first sales strategy commensurate with time. That equip your sales team with the tools, materials, and content to succeed. Of course, you need to invest something here as well. If you don't have the tools technique, if you will send the army without the weapon, of course they cannot fight the battle, right? So you have to provide them with all the necessary resources, equipment, tools. Then you have to adjust your pricing to accommodate business people with cash flow issues. This we can take the best example of banks. I think different stimulus packages being given in different countries. For example, payment holiday, reduce interest rates, or a deferral of payment or bank charges. So obviously, if some of your customers with whom you want to maintain the long-term relationship, offer them something. If you can offer them good pricing, those who are in the cash flow problem and those who are less affected, as I already explained you in the previous slide, the impact of COVID-19 on different industries. So you can see in which industry your customer is working. If it's a B2B business, then you can offer him some strategy who are less impacted. Don't make the same strategy for the all customers. Every customer in the different industries, as I mentioned, is affected differently, right, due to COVID-19. So use that analysis and see which customer is heavily impacted, and accordingly you can make your strategy. So this is the KPI. You maintain sales volume at 80%. Okay, just give me a minute. I will take a water. Okay, so this is a value discipline model also given by the Cascade that can also help you to make your organization more strategically resilient. So this is based on the three main factors that includes product leadership, operational excellence, and customer intimacy. Means I think maybe if you want to become a product leader, so you have to focus on product leadership. If you want to be a cost leader, you want to offer the cost effective solutions, then you have to focus on the operational excellence, right, to achieve the minimum efficiencies in the business. And the customer intimacy is, it can be best defined as understanding the customers and become obsessed with understanding the individual customers. It's not only understanding the customer needs and wants, but you have to offer them solutions during this pandemic time that can help them to improve their situation, to improve their positions. And you can, for example, if you don't have all the resources, then you can do some subcontracting or arrangement with other vendors to provide them A to Z all the solutions to your customers and during this pandemic time. So this is all about customer intimacy, that you become obsessed with your customers. And not only understanding their needs, but providing them the complete solution. I can give you here one example quickly from our construction industry. I was leading the finance department as head of finance in Oman in the construction industry. And we worked on very mega projects sometimes, so we don't have the capacity to meet all the client needs. So in the construction industry, we do the subcontracting. So why we give the subcontracting? Because we don't want to lose the client. So when we are doing the tender work, we always focus on building good relationship with the subcontractor. So whatever we don't have, whatever services we don't have, we can do some contracting with other subcontractors or vendors, and we can provide the complete solution to our customers. So you can also consider your industry, which industry you are in. If you want to provide the solutions to your customers, from you have to meet their entire needs, then you can collaborate and do some strategic partnership with the subcontractors or other vendors to provide. You can give them subcontract, right? Then product leadership is all about the innovation in your product. As I mentioned, for example, during the pandemic time, if you are in the food and beverage industry, you can offer more organic products. You can do some more innovations in your product. Then your operational excellence, you know about improving the operational efficiencies, redesigning or re-engineering your processes, your value chain activities to improve your operational excellence. So these are the three main areas according to your company strategy. You can focus on it. And this is the last model which I want to talk with you. Second last model, second last slide. This is a McKinsey's Zone 3 horizons of growth. This is horizon 1 is to maintain and defend your core business. So what is your first core business? Obviously, for your survival, you have to focus on the horizon 1, right? Then you have to nurture emerging business. So for example, now we have more digital business, more businesses are focusing on creating the digital value proposition for their customers. So you have to focus on new innovations and new technology, how you can leverage new technologies to offer solutions to your customer, as I gave in the example of banks and other retailers, they are using it. Then this is the horizon 3, where you can create genuinely new business. New business, of course, at this time, nobody will suggest, I will also not suggest to you, but during this time of pandemic, many new businesses will emerge. You will see even the businesses of existing company, for example, Netflix, the market value of Netflix have improved significantly. Why? Because people are moving towards more online business and online goods and services. So you can think about it also. So you can first focus on the horizon 1 and 2, maintain and defend your core business, and then you think about the emerging business according to the current situation. Then you move on to horizon 3 to make your organization more strategically resilient. Because if you can offer innovative products and solutions to your customers, of course, you will be more strategically resilient and you can maintain your market position. Then this is one framework from Bain and Company for the operating model. You can use it, for example, to execute your strategy. You have to focus on the structure, the organization structure, whether you have matrix structure or whichever structure you have. Then the governance and accountabilities, the ways of working, then your people, process, technologies to implement the roadmap. This is the complete operating model which you can use to execute those strategy. In fact, to support being a finance professional, your organization, to execute that strategy. So that's all the end of resilience part at financial level, at personal level, and a strategic level. And I will quickly go through our framework. I think I have already gone through it during conference, the virtual finance transformation conference. This is our framework at HOFT, Hub of Finance Transformation, this based on the 6 layers of leadership. So today and in the previous sessions, today we have basically covered personal leadership, financial and strategic leadership part already from this framework. Then yesterday we had a session on communication, storytelling, and public speaking that was a part of public leadership. Then we have already covered financial leadership as well yesterday with Vinod session, and we have covered operational leadership and strategic leadership also with Ashit. He had presented on the supply chain part, and Mohammed Al Ruby, he presented on the finance business partnering part, and Andrew Gibson, and all of the speakers you might know from our agenda. We have already covered. Now tomorrow and day after tomorrow, now we have 3 more sessions to come, and in those sessions we will be focusing more on the technology side. If you will see our agenda, I think you have already received in your email on our LinkedIn page, you have it, our agenda. If you will see the agenda for tomorrow and the next 3 days from 20, 21, and 22, we will be focusing more on the technology side, on the technology leadership. And we have a very great experts from USA, Washington, DC, and from California, Brian and Robert, who will be explaining us the role, giving their insights on robotic process automation in finance and artificial intelligence in finance. So I highly recommend you to attend those sessions as well with them. And this is the same framework in much detail. You can see this is the framework that we have developed at HOFT for personal leadership, public leadership, technology leadership, operational leadership. This is a very comprehensive framework. You can go through it. I will send you the copy of presentation. So we will be covering from our technology side in the next 3 sessions. We will be covering artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, and the digital transformation, ERP, EPM side, and the business intelligence visualization side in our upcoming sessions on the technology side. So that's all from my side. Let's see if you have any questions. You can just unmute, or you can send it in the chat box. Okay, I have one question. What's the minimum ROI on marketing expenses we should benchmark in general, please? See, actually, ROI, return on investment, of course, it varies significantly, I will say, according to the industry, which industry you are working, which industry you are operating in. It varies significantly because different industries need to market differently. And of course, the ROI, which we in our organization, we always try to maximize it, and we want ROI almost within the range of 20-25%. But again, it varies accordingly. And for the ROI part, I will also suggest to you, don't just immediately expect the returns on the ROI in the tangible form that, oh, we will get the financial return. Sometimes you will get intangible benefits also, right? Sometimes you will get the customer relationships that will be helpful for you to in the long term. In the long term, that customer, if they are connected with you, if they are emotionally connected with your products, with your services, then that will be the return. That will be the return. That's the problem with most of the finance professionals. They always see in the financial term, in the short term, but you have to think long term. You have to be very proactive and think the long term. You have to see the return in the intangible form, like in the form of customer relationships, building the brand with the customer loyalty. If you are getting it from your marketing, then of course you are maximizing the ROI. In the long term, of course, you will get the benefits in terms of more revenue or more cash inflows as well. Okay. Then there are, what should be the ROI? What is the difference between GRIT and resilience? Can you please explain to you what is GRIT? What do you mean by GRIT? How to compute ROI for admin staff? See, again, for the admin staff, of course, admin staff that could include your procurement, that can include your IT, that can include your finance, that can include your other support functions, right? So of course, I know why you asking about it, because they are not directly involved in the business, right? They are not directly involved in the operation. They are mostly the support functions. So of course, there again, you have to see not only in the financial terms, but in non-financial terms, like what's their productivity, how productive they are, how efficient they are. For example, if your admin staff, what is his productivity? If he's improving his productivity, of course, that's the ROI. Because obviously the admin staff, he cannot improve your sale, or he can improve your mode sale, but he can make your operationally, he can make operational excellence. He can help you, support you in making your operationally sound and operationally efficient to improve your processes. So of course that will be the ROI. So that's the case, like we should not always depend for ROI on the financial terms. We have to include the non-financial terms as well, and how much value that employees are bringing. That's all about the return on investment. So you have to consider the financial as well as the non-financial terms. How to computer? Okay, what is the difference? Or how do you quantify that value he or she brings? See, Avinash, this one, of course, there are no certain benchmarks or KPIs or metrics to measure it. I will give you example of employee. If you want to measure the value you are creating to your employee, right? You can create it, for example, how much value you are creating from the employee. The salary, for example, you are giving a salary to your employee $10,000 a year, okay, and he's ready to leave your organization for $8,000, right? That's mean he's not willing to work for your organization, and he's just trying to escape from your organization, and he's even ready to work somewhere else. And that's mean he's not putting his dedication, his support to your organization, and of course he will not bring some results. So you have to see the performance, you have to assess their performance, then of course that would be the ROI, that will be the return. And also, being a finance professional, I will suggest you to collaborate very closely with your finance function. Sorry, your finance function should collaborate very closely with your HR function, your human capital function, or HC function. Like, obviously they are the one who have to measure each and every employee's productivity, and of course in coordination with their line managers. So you have to collaborate with your HR function, HC function, how much you are investing on their training, how much you are investing on their training and development, and what return they are bringing to your organization, and whether the results that they are bringing, is it really because of their efforts, or maybe sometimes it's by chance. For example, I was working as a head of accounts in one of the company. I will give you my example from my own work experience. I was working in Abu Dhabi as a head of accounts, and that company was in has the one of the business unit was the indoor entertainment games in the mall. So we had the largest bowling games. Maybe you heard about it in the UAE, bowling city. There were the large bowling lines in the entire city. So I was working there as the head of accounts, and they have their outlets in almost all big malls like Majid Al Fudaim, all the city centers. We have the outlets. So some of their branch managers, so each of the branch, they have the branch manager. So sometimes what happens, the customer footfall in the mall increases, for example, due to some public holiday, or due to some season, or some due to some festive season, the customer footfall increases in one branch, and other branch and other mall, it is quite far from the city, so customer footfall is not increasing. So if customer footfall is more in that branch, that doesn't mean that that branch manager is doing some extra efforts to bring the customer. It's the more customer, it's in the mall, like more customers are coming in the mall, so it's not because of his efforts. So this thing also we have to keep in mind while calculating the ROI, whether the results is being coming because of their direct efforts of the employees, or it's coming due to some external factors. And also this we have to think about when calculating the incentives and bonus for them. Okay, from Chew, there are studies that people will grit will endure and success over those with intelligence. Hence, would like to know if grit is equal to resilience. See, intelligence, of course, intelligence is itself a part of resilience. As I mentioned in the start, that of course, to become more personally resilient, you have to improve your level of intelligence. For example, your emotional intelligence, your EQ level. So of course, intelligence is a part of it. And in order to strengthen your resilience, you have to improve and strengthen your intelligence as well. And as I mentioned, the four different dimensions: mental level, at emotional, social, spiritual, and physical level. So you have to maintain all the dimensions equally to improve your resilience. When do we receive copies of this presentation? Yeah, sure, Kevaka. I will, after the end of this summit, I will compile all the presentations from all the speakers, and as well as we will be having the video recording as well. So we can provide you, of course, all the copies and everything. So that's all from my side. If anyone want to speak more, then you can just unmute and speak.
Yeah, hi Zishan.
Yes.
Yeah, hi Avinash here.
Yes.
So how do we connect was like, I do have like, connection on LinkedIn with you.
Okay.
So is that the thing, or like, do you have any email?
Yes, you can join our LinkedIn page as well, HOFT. and you can connect with me. My WhatsApp number, my email, everything is there on my LinkedIn profile. You can
I'm already connected with you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and for all the attendees, almost we have 350 registered attendees for different sessions for this conference. So of course, most of them are asking for the presentation copies and the recording. So after the end of summit, inshallah, we will compile it and we will share.
I'll be more interested in the technology, emerging technology session.
Yeah, that will be held from tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a case study on digital transformation, and after that we have on the emerging technology session from the USA, our speakers from USA, Brian Kalish and Robert.
Will it be tomorrow?
No, that will be after tomorrow. We have 3 days more. Tomorrow we have on digital transformation, role play, case study. Then after that, on 21st, we have by Robert on artificial intelligence, AI for rapid risk planning for COVID-19 situation. Then on on the last day, 22nd of April, we have session by Brian Kalish on RPA, robotic process automation, how we can leverage these technologies in the finance to create value. So that will be very interesting sessions as well. So I suggest all of you to attend that one also, and you can have a chance directly to interact with such great thought leaders and experts from USA. So if you have any questions, they will be glad to answer you as well.
Yeah, because I think the AI, the ML, the IoT, the cloud computing.
Yeah, these are the future, of course, because even most of the CFOs, CEOs, they have on their agenda, I think, these technologies, but I think due to this situation now it's on the mainstream. And even those companies who didn't even think of investing in emerging and digital technologies, they are now planning to invest, because obviously without this there might not be survival. So
no, I just wanted to touch base with you so that in situations where you need to lean on some opinions or run past through some doubts which we have for a second opinion.
Yes, sure. You can connect with me LinkedIn and our HOFT page. You have our email ID as well, our WhatsApp, everything will be provided.
I'll check on the LinkedIn whether you are my first connection. So I'll check whether hopefully I should be able to see your contact details.
Yeah, sure, I will. And Usman Saeed, can you please confirm the timing for tomorrow event? So yeah, it is at 6:45. You can just check from the agenda as well. It's in the evening, same time that we started today.
So all the remaining sessions are the same time, yeah?
No, by another speaker, because they will be joining from US. So maybe that will be on another time. By Robert, we have at 4 p.m. Dubai time on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we have at 7 p.m. by Brian Kalish.
Okay, so only tomorrow which is changing.
Yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow at same time. And the last session is also on same time. Second last session is only on the 4 p.m. Dubai time.
Okay, fine. Thanks a lot, Zeshan. Take care. Stay safe, stay healthy, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and stay safe and good night.
Good night.